Hello, hello, hello.
Goes green.
Good morning, everyone. We will start off today's proceedings with a karakia. Tūtara mai ngā runga, tūtara mai ngā raro, tūtara mai ngā roto, tūtara mai ngā waho, kia teo a tau mau tiu, kia teo a tau mau ora, humi e, hui e, tai ki e. Please be seated. Welcome everyone to our first council meeting of the year. Great to have you here. Welcome to members of the public, to the local runanga and not so local runanga. Sorry for butchering a karakia in front of you, it is embarrassing. Media and staff as well, thank you for being here this morning. I have an apology from Councillor Paul McPhail. Any other apologies? Could I please have a mover for that apology? Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Stringer. I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And against, that is carried. Thank you, councillors, and hello to Councillor McPhail if you're watching over in Australia. Any conflicts of... Oh, there's no public forum today. Any conflicts of interest in today's agenda? Councillor Smith.
I'll just have a conflict of interest for one of the reports for decision under confidential business, stormwater modelling and outcomes.
Thank you. The timing's going to take some getting used to. And just non-voting for that one, but participating?
Yes, please.
Thank you. And Councillor Phillips?
Push a bit harder. Thank you, Your Worship. 8.1 in committee. Non-voting, but always to speak around the table. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Those conflicts are acknowledged. On to confirmation. Were there any further conflicts? Confirmation of minutes, the unconfirmed minutes of Council on the 17th of December 2025. Questions or concerns? Appear to be none. Could I just have a move that there's a true and correct record? Councillor Cupid, seconded by Councillor Phillips. Any further discussion? I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And against? That is carried. Thank you, councillors. Confirmation of the minutes of the Matoda Community Board meeting on Monday, the 2nd of February. Any questions or concerns, comments? Councillor Fraser?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just on page 4, committee recommendations, the mover and the seconder are the same person in 6.3 and 6.2.
Thank you, councillor. Do we know who may have seconded that on that meeting? Okay, Amanda will take that back. Do we need to table it then until... Yep. Happy to table those minutes. They'll come back to us with a correct seconder. Thank you, councillor. Sorry, we did have one piece of late urgent items. So the meal report wasn't in the agenda. So could I please have a mover that we put the meal report on the agenda as a late urgent item? Sorry, I'll just do the explanation. So it's a late urgent item because it wasn't ready for the agenda and it hasn't happened yet this term. So it's better to be on before we have a much larger one. Next council meeting. So Councillor Stringer is the mover, Councillor Phillips is the seconder. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And against? Motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Did you need a second to read through that? We can put it later in the agenda. I see it's all been circled round. Should we do that item now? All happy? Yep. Okay. Meal report, pretty standard. So this, for the public will obviously receive a copy of this. It should be live now even. It goes from November through to January. Has a brief description about the Tamworth visit and councillors' updates as well. Any questions for myself or councillors on this report? For Councillor Fraser, who is always hot on my tail about minister meetings, I think I only met with Minister Meager over the previous couple of months. The meal group meeting was around priorities. He was doing looking at each of the different regions and what their priorities were. So Great South put forward a proposal for that one. And the other one was around Mayor's Task Force for Jobs as well, which he was very intrigued by the work that that group does. Councillor Bruce?
The Visitor and Information Centre, you meet with the manager there and discussed offerings to newcomers and visitors? Or just, what is that? What's that about?
Yeah, so we got shown around the visitor centre in Tamworth and talked about the similarities between our visitor centre and our Moonshine Museum. They've got a wax figure country music museum, and they also have lots of signed guitars and things as well. So that was really interesting about the similarities and how they run things over there. So that's all knowledge that can be passed back to over our side and better ways to operate things. If there are no further questions, I'll look for a move that this report be received. Councillor Cupid, second by Councillor Fraser. Any more discussion? Councillor Coates.
Through you, Your Worship, I just want to make note that when I gave my list of things that I'd done under my council role, there's been a number of things missed off, like Mataura Community Board meetings, all the workshops that we've attended, the portfolio meetings, risk and assurance interviews and council meetings and stuff. Like, I just really want to make the public aware that the role isn't just, like, it's actually quite bigger than what's written down on the piece of paper, so, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. It's never been included in the mayoral report purely because people will see that we're having all of those meetings. This is more meetings that people might not see that we're having. But we could potentially include a section that has all the things we've done as a council at the beginning. I'm seeing nods around the table. So, yeah, we can include that in future. No worries. If there is no further discussion, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And against, that is carried. Thank you very much, councillors. On to 6.2, which is the updates on the government reforms. Welcome, David, on up. Dave, did you have any updates for us?
Just a reminder, really, this will be a standing report that will come every month. As legislation comes out of central government, we'll update the report. You'll see in the agenda you've got a couple of items to approve retrospectively, submissions that have already been sent in because they closed earlier this month. And you've got a couple of items that we are not submitting on, that you have 3 days to submit if you wish to submit in a personal capacity. The Local Government Infrastructure Funding and Financing Amendment Bill, and the proposal on simplifying local government, the abolition of regional councillors and replacing them with combined territories boards. We're not submitting on either of those, but they are open for submissions in a personal capacity if you wish to.
Thank you, David. Any questions? Councillor Cupid.
Why aren't we submitting on the regional council reorganisation proposal?
It was briefly discussed and circulated with you guys last time. Essentially, staff availability to put together an option, and I guess as well a question of potential conflicts of interest for the mayor. The proposal suggests that all the territory mayors come together. But as I say, you're welcome to submit in a personal capacity if you wish to.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Coates.
Just for clarification, David, did we not discuss that we were actually going to submit on that because it affects us as a council?
That's not my recollection, and there was an email that was circulated to all councillors before Christmas saying these are the only ones that we were going to submit on the rate capping and the RMA reform bills. I've certainly not been given any direction to prepare a submission. Councils are, welcome to provide that if they want to now. We do have 3 days to submit. If council are able to come up with a agreed platform, then we can prepare a submission quickly.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bruce?
Just a question under the planning bill section. It says, aims to better enable development through reducing consenting requirements, and then underneath it's got may require councils to compensate property owners. I just want to understand why, what that part is about, why we need to compensate property owners and that wee bit there.
That's how the RMA reform bill, the planning bill, has been drafted, that there may be requirements for councils to compensate property owners, but the legislation's not been confirmed yet. Our submission, along with many other submissions from the industry, suggests that is not included in the final legislation, but it's included in the proposal, so that's why it's listed there.
Thank you, Councillor. So I probably have an item for debate, but I guess the question is, can we prepare a submission for that reorganisation within the 3 days? Do we have capacity to do so? I understand there's LGNZ templates. I can share my views and debate as to what we should be submitting on.
If council's able to give staff direction on what they would like included in a submission, then yes, we could turn one around quickly to be approved via email and then approved retrospectively in the next council meeting formally.
Thank you. Councillor Bruce?
Excuse my pronunciation. The Te Ture Whenua Māori Amendment Bill, at the end here it says may require changes in rating. I guess that's the same answer as before, is it? Well, what's that about? What about that would cause a change in rating?
It's been a while since I've read that one, but as I understand it, the proposed legislation, which is currently being consulted on with iwi, may change Maori freehold land and how it's rated for. I don't believe it would have an impact specifically in Gore District Council, but it may do in other parts of the country for other councils.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? I'll look for a mover that we receive this report, and I might put up another recommendation as well, that we prepare a submission for the reorganisation legislation as well. Happy to move, Councillor Coates, seconded by Councillor Smith. Open for debate. So I think we should, and sorry that this is a change. I know there's only 3 days left, so I do feel for staff on this one. But just reading through the submissions from other councils, specifically ones near us, I'm a little bit worried about the submissions around pace. Basically, there's submissions that indicate that if councils can agree, they should just box on with it and get it on with earlier. I personally think there needs to be quite a bit of consultation and community engagement with all of these reorganisation proposals, whether it's us or regional councils or whoever. Community must be involved rather than just trying to streamline things, make it faster. We've got so many pieces of legislation that are trying to be sped up. I think this is one that we could take our time on. Are there any other views for that submission? Appear to be none. The only other one that I'll raise is just, I know it's only one of the options. Oh, yeah. I know it's only one of the options, but just around the population split per vote as well. There's obviously issues for us down here, as if we did voting per population split. Invercargill would have that. That is only one of the options. There are ways to do it. Each council gets one vote, etc. Two, the third one is just acknowledgement around boundaries for waters as well. Obviously, I think we need to continue to highlight to the government that we work outside of our region with waters and not with our regional partners on that one as well. Councillor Fraser?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm sort of along with you, and I can understand what Southland District will be chasing it as it falls under their agenda of amalgamation. But you bring up a very good point with our water CCO about how that will be looked at within that whole organisation.
Yeah, totally agree. It's a tricky position we find ourselves in of potentially sharing a regional council with two councils and sharing a water CCO with another two councils. So I think that should be highlighted to government. Councillor Cupit?
Yeah, I agree with everything you've said. Should we also put something in there about potentially looking at realigning those boundaries? I know that's been talked about a lot with West Otago, coming into our Southland, and same with Riversdale. So include that maybe.
Yep, good point. It's been noted. Thank you, Councillor Cupit. Councillor Phillips?
Thank you, Your Worship. I like this once again. It's just legislation or government driving things without any consultation, no respect to the public, and I'm just disappointed. And I'd just like to highlight and thanks to the GM in bringing this forward to the public. It just shows you the list of stuff that central government are trying to drive through, and what we're actually put up against. Once again, we're the whipping boys, and being told that you will deliver this to the message to the ratepayer, and we are the ones that take the flak.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion? Appears to be none. I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. And against? Motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, David. Next up, we have the financial report. Lorne, welcome up. Did you have anything to add to this report?
Kia ora, and thank you, Your Worship. And through you, Your Worship, I just want to start by saying there's actually a correction to the report to be made. On page 35 of the agenda, under the capital expenditure with IT, there's an oversight there. It is not unbudgeted expenditure. It is just that the budget was sitting in another cost centre and was an oversight by staff when they were preparing the report. So originally the budget was sitting in property, because when this building was refurbished, everything in this building was capitalised under the one area. We've pulled it out and the expenditure is sitting in IT, because when it comes to renewal, that's where it should sit. So there is actually budget there in the renewals for the AV work. So I just want to make that clear before we carried on. But happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lorne. Questions? Just questions at this stage. We'll save debate for after question time. Councillor Fraser.
That's better. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Lorne, I'm just reading through the capital expenditure by department, and I see Arts and Heritage is at 425% of their budget. Can you just explain? I've had the explanation for me, but explain to everybody how that has come about.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Fraser, and through you, Your Worship. The 51k unfavourable expenditure is actually really easily explained. So we received, the council received $100,000 towards the Win Hamilton Wing and Research Centre, Haukanui Heritage Research Centre, and we did not have that information at the time that we did the budget, so we did not budget any expenditure. So we've received some grant money from the Southern Regional Heritage Committee, and that has then come on to pay for some work in the research centre. So yes, it looks unbudgeted, but the overall effect for the organisation is nil, because the income and the expenditure match. If we did not have that income, we would not have spent that money.
Thank you, Lorne. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Coates.
Lorna, just on that same thing, if that's the case, how come it's the variance of 45,000 in that graph that we've got?
So there was some money budgeted. So there is some money budgeted there for new heat pumps and a couple of other smaller minor capital works. So the difference is we have spent 36,000 on the research centre. There's also a miscode in there for the new roller doors for the visitor centre. So that has just been when someone's come in to approve their invoice, they've put in the account Arts Heritage thinking it's a Muriwai Centre rather than a visitor expenses centre. Now that expenditure again is budgeted in the LTP, so it has been approved.
I'll just add to that. So we budget for expenditure and revenue separately. So what you'll see a variance in the revenue line that will sit higher than what's expected, and then you'll see variance in the expenditure budget because that's not expenditure that we had originally forecast. So they will offset on the bottom line, but you won't see them in the same place. Does that make sense?
How much of their percent of their annual budget have they spent under capital expenditure?
They've spent only spent 9,000 out of their capital budget of what was in there.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bruce?
I see the roading is unfavourable variance of 889,000. It says it's because of depreciation. Is that going to look any better going further down the track, or is it going to stay looking like that?
Through Your Worship, that is a permanent difference, and it is because at the time that the revaluation was done, it was after revaluations are done for an annual report, so it's done as at the 30th of June 2025. The LTP was adopted before then, so we did not have that information available when we were doing the long-term plan. Staff had hoped to have the information available. We started the process earlier, but we are reliant on external parties to do the revaluation, and we did not receive that final information until July, August, in time for the annual report. So it is a permanent difference. We are trying to get it fixed for the annual plan going forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cupid?
Thank you. Just back onto the corporate and IT. So that variance was 122,000 over budget, with the explanation of 86,000 for the new mic system. Do you know what the other 36,000 overspend was?
I don't have that information to hand, so I can look into that and get back to councillors.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bruce?
What is the altitude migration project?
Again, this project was highlighted in the long-term plan. It is our overall corporate system. So it is the system that looks after our customer requests, it looks after infringements, it looks after regulatory, our finance, our rating. So it's a major overhaul of our system. It's taking it from on-premise to cloud. We do not have a choice about this upgrade. We have got servers that are at end of life by June 2027, and therefore we had to make a decision whether to renew hardware or move to where most people are going and have software as a service and a platform in the cloud. So that is where we are moving. It's a major piece of work. There's also additional pieces in that will hopefully streamline invoicing, meet government requirements around e-invoicing and procure to pay in that space. So we are under pressure from the government to provide an e-invoicing process. Whilst it's not mandatory, it is strongly recommended, and we're going to be having to report on that. We will be, and I will say this now, we will be saying we are not compliant with that because we do not currently have e-invoicing. So that project is a bigger piece of work that is ongoing for the next 18 months.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McDonald?
Lorna, hey. See, we've done well in Parks and Reserves for 204k, a favourable variance, but we'll catch a bit of that up later in the year. How have we gone with the clean-up of the trees? That it's obviously an unbudgeted item, but...
Through Your Worship, we are still getting some expenses through. We have not hit our $100,000 trigger for insurance claim as yet. The last time I looked at the numbers, it was 86,000. We do have some recourse through the Ministry for Environment on clean-up, and we are pursuing that at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to jump in next, Councillor Coates. In depreciation, we've obviously talked about roading, which was primarily around the methodology, but property is 158,000 more. What's the main contributor of this?
That's all right. It'll be a combination of timing and also some journals that may not have been put to the right areas. So it's a work in progress. I believe that we've had some work come on stream earlier than what we had anticipated. But there was some of that is also to do with the revaluations of our property last year. So all of our properties got revalued and they were revalued upwards as well. So part of it is the revaluation.
Yeah, I guess that's what the question I was asking was around the revals. Is there any, in particular pieces of property that have made that jump up, or is it an overall increase across the board?
On the whole, it's an overall increase. So all of our properties, as people have seen with their own QV revaluations, most properties moved in the last 3 years, and as we're no exception to that. So it was a generalised increase of, I think, around somewhere between 5 and 10%.
Thank you. Councillor Coates.
Sorry, just back to the IT stuff again. The audio system, I've had lots of questions from the public around how the $86,000 was spent and whether or not it was quotes were sought locally, whether quotes were sorted. Can you just clarify how that $86,000 was spent, please?
Through you, Your Worship. A robust process was undertaken. The staff followed the Council's procurement policy. We obtained 3 quotes as specialist equipment, and therefore there's only a few providers that can do what we needed to have done. The equipment was at end of life. It has been in here for over 5 years. It was obsolete and it was actually up for renewal anyway. As we said, it was sitting in the property budget. So that has been spent on a lot of different things, like with the new microphones, the system, being able to hear people on Teams. So a lot of the feedback we were getting from the community last year was anytime we had someone on Teams, they couldn't be heard through the live stream. So we have listened to the public and made sure we included that in our solution. The other thing is that, now the butterfly, it's gone. Yeah, so we did also look at repairing and seeing what we could repair. So we had a look at the components we had, but a lot of them were out of date and we could not source replacements. So with the microphones and the batteries for the microphones, we could not source replacements for those. So our hands were tied, and again, we want to be able to, legally we do not have to stream meetings, but we wanted to make sure that we are making it transparent for our community to participate in the comfort of their own home or office.
Thank you, Lorne. Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Lorne. I totally get the fact that the system was needed. I get that, but I do talk often about making sure that we've looked at all the options, especially with local business, etc. Because I get comments back sometimes, we didn't get a chance at certain things. I know it's specialised, this kind of gear, and I'm hoping it's working really well. But we need to be seen to be open to local business. So the question is, were local businesses asked to tender for these cameras? Sorry.
There were local suppliers in the Southland region that were approached. So all three suppliers that we approached to provide quotes that was within our procurement policy all have bases in Invercargill and Dunedin. So it depends on your definition of local. Like we said, we went through quite a robust process. We did due diligence. There's 2 reports went up to senior leadership team. It was in the ALTP for adoption. One of the providers was dismissed early on because they did not understand the remit and could not deliver what we needed. The other 2 were very, very close, and it was almost a flip of a coin between the 2. We have gone with the same system as Invercargill, and hopefully we'll see how today goes and see what the feedback from public is watching.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lorna. Councillor Stringer?
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. Does the council use its like government procurement ability where you can get things at the cost before going through the company?
Through you, Your Worship. Yes, we do. Where we can, we do. Absolutely. The in IT in particular is one area where we do use the all of government contracting. We are hamstrung a little bit with things like stationery because we do follow our buy local policy and we get our papers supplied by a local provider, which means we cannot, if we don't get everything through all of government, then we can't get some through it. So there's pros and cons there on both, on doing buy local and all of government. But where we can, to try and save the ratepayer money, we do all of government.
Just going to jump in first, Councillor Bruce. So, Lorna, you talked about that these were at end of life after 5 years. Does that mean that we're going to have to replace this whole system again in another 5 years?
Potentially, if that is what the councillors want, we could go back to having nothing. We could choose not to live stream our meetings, but that will be, you know, ideally. Normally, this is a equipment that is in place now, and we would be depreciated it over 5 years to be able to replace it in 5 years' time.
So these devices and the cameras have the same lifespan as the one that we've replaced?
There's always hope that it'll last longer, but technology moves very, very quickly. And again, we will assess it at that time. We won't automatically replace it for the sake of replacing it. If it's working fine, we will continue to use it. As we saw from the last year and the last couple of years, the equipment we had previously wasn't doing the job we needed it to do for our public.
Thank you. Councillor Bruce?
At what stage, if any, were councillors consulted before committing to this level of expenditure, and who approved the final system specification and cost?
So it was an approved item in the long-term plan, and that is the councillor's main mechanism for approving expenditure. But it's also a replacement, so it's a renewal. So it's not a new project. It's not like something we are starting from scratch. We would come to councillors and going, this is what we want to do. It's existing equipment, it's broken, or it's run out, it's end of life, it's not working as it should, then it's a replacement. So we depreciate our existing assets and our existing equipment with the view to replacing them when they get to end of life. That's the standard operational procedure that's followed by all councils around the country.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cupid?
Yeah, just following on from what Donna said, is there a threshold of expenses where it should come to council or be discussed?
So if it's sat above my financial delegation, then we would come back to council for approval.
And what is that?
It's actually dependent on whether there's a contract already in place or whether it's new. We'd have to revise, have a look at that. We've had a look at it recently, and we can circulate that to elected members. But again, this was approved, and it is definitely below the Chief Executive's delegated authority. It was within my delegated authority. I think general managers have delegation up to 250,000, which means the CE would likely have delegation up to 500,000. And for contracts that are already awarded, we have the authority to approve up to $1 million plus if it's already awarded and approved by council. So to save everything having to come back to council and be mired in administration for meetings like this, those delegations are in place for that reason.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bruce?
Last one. Is the council aware of the level of concern expressed regarding expenditure out in the community, and how is feedback from the community being considered, and maybe things coming up in the future like that?
I'll try and answer that one. I don't think. I mean, we don't live in a vacuum, right? We hear things that are going on across the community. So I don't think that staff are numb to the fact that things cost money. But at the end of the day, they're also trying to make sure that the public can hear us during meetings, can see us during meetings, and fulfil their obligations as well. So, does that answer your question? Probably not as much as you'd like to, Councillor Bruce, but that's the answer I have for you.
I guess the public would expect the budgets to be reasonable, I guess. It just doesn't seem reasonable.
That we're starting to get into discussion. So, is there any more questions around the table? Appear to be none. Could I please have a mover that we receive and note this financial report? Councillor Fraser, seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Now open for discussion. Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, when I saw the figure, I thought, gosh, but I know that's why we have a long-term plan, and I know that's why we have budgeting. And from the feedback that I've had from the community is, we cannot hear you, we cannot see you. So 5 years, lifelong, I struggle with that, but Councillor Stringer will probably know more about that when it comes to technology. But it's done, it needed to be done, it's in your delegated authority. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fraser. Councillor Bruce.
Just want to talk about the rates revenue, favourable again by 119,000 K, mainly due to higher than budgeted rates penalties applied to non-payments of rates. So is that showing again that people are struggling with the level of rates?
We've missed questions, but I will allow it if there is an answer.
Look, it's not for staff to comment on people's personal situations in their home. We do not know. It's not for us to speculate. Look, what this is saying is that when penalties have been applied, that ratepayers are paying the penalties, that they have paid them. So it's what we've collected. If people haven't paid them, we don't know what the reasons are that they haven't paid them. But when they have gone to pay them, they've also paid the penalties on top of them.
Is it another question? Councillor Coates.
Sorry, another question. That aquatic is favourable. It's up quite a wee bit. And this is up to December. Obviously, things are going good at the swimming pool.
I think that, if I read that correctly, I think it's chemical costs that haven't eventuated yet. Yeah, so it'll probably catch up. Sorry, Councillor.
It says that expenditure is unfavourable, but the income is favourable. So therefore, are more people going to the swimming pool?
Through Your Worship, the numbers in question are very, very small compared to the total budget, which is why there wasn't a commentary on it. A variance of 34,000 on over $1 million is like this much. So it could be that I know that their swim classes have gone well. They are getting quite a few groups through in various forms. Again, expenditure is only unfavourable by 15,000. Again, against a budget of 1.3 million, that's quite small. The timing for the pool is also really, really important. So through summer months, they tend to get busier, and through Christmas period, they tend to get busier. Again, the chemical usage may go up. They have, this time of year, they also have a lot of staff turnover with students who are going off to university, and we'll see some fluctuation with their expenditure coming up. So,
Councillor Stringer, last question, because we've already passed question time.
Thank you, Worship. It's more to overall, can we get a depreciation schedule at all for just so other councillors can send in mind how the council depreciates its assets as opposed to how it's done in regular business, whether it's linear or fixed?
Through Your Worship, staff can look at what we can pull out. They sit across it sits across 48 different cost centres. So we can pull out actual versus budget by activity if that would help, or if you'd rather it by class, we could potentially pull it by class, but that will take some work for our team because it's not in the natural way that we pull that information.
Thank you, Councillor. Right. back into debate. Is there any further conversation and debate? I think the only thing I'd like to add is around the audiovisual system. I think Councillor Fraser's dead on. If this lasts 5 years, I'll be a bit gutted. Hopefully it lasts a lot longer than that with the amount of money that we've paid. And let's hope they keep working well. Any further discussion? Appears to be none. I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And against? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Lorne. 6.4, and I am going to hand over to Councillor Fraser, who will lead this item, and welcome David up as well. Councillor Fraser is the portfolio lead for recreation and arts, so he will take over this one. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. David, is there anything you want to add?
No, I'll take the report as read. We'll try and bring these updates on this project every 2 months ahead of its opening in July. But happy to go to questions.
Thank you, David. Mel.
I wondered, will the Heritage Centre, the new centre, have a automated door counter system like the library does to keep track of visitor numbers?
I love it when I'm ahead of the game. It already does.
Anybody else? Councillor Bruce.
The temporary exhibition and space and under there is like coming up with new things that you're going to do. I'm just wondering, is all that going to be funded, self-funded? All these new things coming up there.
I think the first thing that will be in there is the Hokanui ID fashion stuff. We're hoping to have the first kind of temporary exhibition in there for that. But you wanted to add something, Debbie?
So the types of exhibitions that you can have in there are the touring exhibitions. So often Te Papa will do a touring exhibition that will go around the country, and typically you'll charge for those. So it might be, I don't know if you've ever seen the touring exhibitions where they take the different bugs around. It's things like that. So typically they pay their own way because you have a charge. So it can be a revenue source for museums, and they typically change out regularly. So your local community have something different to come and visit for coming back, sort of over and over again, school holidays and things like that. Does that make sense? Yep.
Councillor Coates.
Thank you. Just a question around staffing. I see the Gore Visitor Centre will be relocated. Is there going to be an increase in staff that are going to run this whole centre? Like, it's quite a lot bigger than obviously what we've currently got for a visitor centre. So
we're not intending to increase the staffing, no.
Continue, Councillor Coates.
See if it's on. Just around that staffing stuff, then the staff that are at the Old Moonshine, are they going to stay the same there, or are they? So
similar to how we staff the Croydon Aviation Museum, we'll have a staff member at the Moonshine Museum, and then staff at the Visitor Centre and the Muriwai Centre. So you've currently generally got 2, sometimes 3 at the Moonshine Museum. There'll be 1 at the Moonshine Museum and at least 1 at the Muriwai Centre Visitor Centre.
So just thinking back to another situation we've had recently down in Matoda, we had 1 staff member at the library and they weren't great working conditions having that staff member on their own. Is that going to come into effect in having 1 staff member on the premises?
There won't be 1 staff member on the premises, but there'll be 1 kind of front of house at all times. The joy of the precinct being gallery, museum, there are more than 3 staff at all times there, and they'll be able to support each other and cover for breaks and so on. But there'll always be 1 front of house person there when you walk in.
Councillor Bruce, did you have a question? Okay. Dave, I have a question. In recent donations and funding, do you actually have a figure of what that has been?
I don't have a figure of what we're up to at the moment, but just to give you some recent examples, in the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've had a $20,000 donation from one family, who I will actually acknowledge. It's Nancy and Ron McDonald, and Nancy unfortunately passed away last week, but they've been regular supporters and donors to the museum, and they supported the project with a donation of $20,000 shortly before she passed away. Another local family provided their 5th donation, again in the tens of thousands. 2 other local families have provided recent donations. These are all in the last few weeks, and they would total just under 100,000 collectively. That's not a super unusual month for us. Jim Geddes, our curator, is very, very good at persuading people to donate, and there are a lot of local families who are willing to reach into their pockets and donate to this project.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. And so, apart from ongoing day-to-day, council's not contributing any more funding to the Muriwai Centre. Is that correct?
Unless you want to put a notice of motion up to ask your colleagues to contribute, there's nothing further planned in the long-term plan, no.
Any further questions? Well, the recommendation is that receive and note the update of the Muriwai Centre project. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor McDonnell, seconded Councillor Gardine. Any comments or debate? Councillor Gardine.
No, it's very good to see that people in the district are stepping up and supporting this thing, and council doesn't have to take that front seat. And I think that's a really good example of one of our business units, and we should be trying to applaud Jim for the work that he does of bringing that extra money in. But we've got to be also known to the ratepayers that we don't want to. The ratepayers have been telling us to be careful what we do and what we do with their money, and same with the government. So this is a good example of what should happen.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate exactly what Councillor Gardine's just said. It is thanks to Jim that the funding is still coming in and the project is coming towards an end. I know it's been a long time and we can carry on blaming COVID as long as we can, but it is a long washout. But it's getting there. It is going to be a great asset to our community. And I'll just leave it at that. Councillor Coates.
Sorry, I should have asked this before. It's more of a question now that I think about it. Once this is all up and open and all these things are done, is the stuff that's in the old library going to be shifted over there? If we could potentially have a new building, empty building?
Yeah, you're quite correct. A lot of the stuff that's stored in the old library building will be going into the Muriwai Centre. So the old library building will be largely empty once the Muriwai Centre is fully operational, yes.
Any further comment? Well, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? It's carried. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Fraser. Excellent job. Next up, we have 7.1, which is the Charter of Understanding. Dean, did you want to come on up? Welcome. Thank you for coming along. And Joe as well. Good to see you again.
You coming, Ricky? There's a seat for you, Ricky.
There's always a seat for you, Ricky. Now, I come to an agreement with Councillor Phillips before this that he wouldn't be leading this item. However, I've changed my mind and he will be leading this item. As the portfolio holder for regional relationships. So I'll pass over to the lovely crew here, so Dean, Joe and Ricky, and then Councillor Phillips can take it away from there.
Ka tika mihi atu ki a koe, Your Worship. Been mihi atu ki a koe e pōwhiritia i a mātou o te whānau, ki rungi te kaupapa te rānei, huri noa i tō tātou, wahi, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Ai, mihi atu hoki ki tō tātou whānau, ua hokanui i tēnei wā, i hara mai i te tautoko, ana hoki David, tēnā koe, tēnā koe. Ko Dean Whanga ahau, no Moto Pohue, tū whakaitia hau e muri a koutou, ki rungi te kaupapa, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Thank you very much for the opportunity for us to be able to be here to answer any questions around the Charter of Understanding. The Charter of Understanding, as presented in the paper, is an enduring document that's been around for over 27 years. And we're presenting on behalf of the partners. It's not just on behalf of the iwi, we're presenting on behalf of partners in the PO group, which is made up of the seven councils in the 4 Papatipu Runanga here in Murihuku. So we have, as per the paper, updated as per our charter, the document this year or last year, and we're just seeking approval from the Gore District Council to be a continued partner in this relationship that's been ongoing for some time, 27 years. I must say that the Gore District Council and its previous mayors and CEs have been great contributors to the Charter, and not just for the Gore District Council, but for the wider communities and the wider Southland. So here to help answer any questions, and David is one of the members of the PO group. We're here to present the paper and seek your approval to sign. So yeah, here to answer any questions.
Technology. Costs a lot, but can't you work it? Welcome to the Gore District team. I hope you enjoyed the day being here, and what we'll do now is we'll just open to questions by councillors. So is there any questions? Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Just wondering how often this group meets and what type of things would be discussed that aren't just discussed with our local Hokonui-Runanga.
We have generally try and have 4 meetings a year. One of the meetings happens in February around the signing of the treaty down here in the south. This year it was supposed to be held in Otago, but the Otago Runanga went to Waitangi this year. So that's an interesting meeting, because it's not just Otago Runanga, and Otago councils, it's the Otago councils as well. So it's quite a big opportunity to get all of our councils together politically. We talk about political things that matter for iwi, things that matter for the councils, how we can work together. So that's the February meeting, and we generally try and meet 3 times a year after that, each quarter, where our mayors get together, where our CEs get together, where our 4 Runanga get together to discuss topical subjects and do some strategic planning around what it looks like in terms of engagement. We also have the opportunity to bring our kaiwhakahaere from, and we have in the past, and CE from Te Runanga of Ngāi Tahu down to present on any topical matters of the iwi, to present to our mayors and our CEs and our group. So yeah.
Sorry, can you just explain what a kaiwhakahaere is? Excuse my pronunciation.
So generally a kaiwhakahaere is it'd be the equivalent to the mea at each of our runanga. Yeah. The leader.
Sorry, I'm a bit confused. So you say that the kaiwhakahaere and the councils all come together.
I suppose, and that point is that the kaiwhakahaere of Te Runanga of Ngāi Tahu, the boss of Te Runanga of Ngāi Tahu, in this case would be Justin Tipper. Justin Tipper? So he's been down last year and we get them down to present to our mayors, because that's the stage we're on. We're at the high level of governance where our, if we want to speak mana to mana, the mayors, CEs to our leaders as well. Yeah.
Councillor Stricker.
Thank you. I noticed in the charter you've got reference to Te Treaty, which is set in stone, that's government, but we've also got reference to the RMA and local government. Obviously there's a lot of changes happening in those two realms at the moment. Is anything that is currently in there going to be superseded in like 6 months' time or 3 months' time, the way it's going? And are we going to have to be sitting around the table in another 6 months going? We need to change. I can speak to it if you want.
I think you can speak better than I can.
I think in the comparison list, it talks about some of the reform that we're expecting, and we've tried to expand the charter to be a bit more inclusive of what we think is coming upon us, like fast tracking and some of these legislative changes. So we do understand that there'll be some big conversations in front of Te Rōpū Taiao about how we continue to engage around the new policy direction that they are being placed upon us by the government.
Councillor Cupid.
Thank you. I just wondered if you could explain how you think for Gore residents, Gore district ratepayers, the difference between this regional-wide charter and our own local charter with our local Hokonui Runanga.
So the charter sits at quite a high political level, so it really gives us the opportunity to think strategically with our... so that's the great thing, that political level within the charter. You get to sit around, not sit around, but you get to be involved with and deliberate with and strategise with other councils and iwi as well, so common goals. I suppose just in terms of Gore, and I think within the charter, it also talks about other relationships under the charter, which is more the mana to mana that you have with the charter with the Hokonui Runanga, and that example is also being used throughout other councils that we do. We have the charter, and then we have other relationships with other councils where we work on other things like policy and planning and a whole lot of other things. So it's not unusual, but those both combined are really quite valuable, I believe, for the Gore District Council, of the Gore and its citizens.
Councillor Fraser.
Thank you. For me, I look at it, there's no real full financial clarity inside that document about costings and everything else like that. Is that I've got to go back to the ratepayers of Gore and say, and they've questioned me about this, what's this costing and why do we need it? Because yes, we have a working relationship, or sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not, with our local runanga, and they are tied in with Ngāi Tahu at a very close level. To me, this just sits, another group sits in between, and the people, particularly the ratepayers of Gore, are going, why are we giving? Why are we doing? And it just needs, I understood your answer before in relation to that high level and ministerial level, but I'm pretty sure I can get it elsewhere. My question is financial clarity. This inside the document, I don't know what we're contributing, how much it is it revised? So is there some sort of financial statement attached to this that we can see?
If I can refer you to the final document, the comparison document between the previous charter and this charter, the second to last item talks a little bit about funding. it doesn't give you an exact amount, but there is some funding that goes from Gore District Council to Te Ao Marama, and that'll be reviewed in 2027. But it's included in your annual plan budgets, long-term plan budgets for council consideration.
Councillor Coates and Councillor Bruce, both in hand up.
Just following on from Councillor Fraser's question, I did some research over the weekend to try and find how much it is that the Gore District Council contributes. I see there's 6% of the total thing. And then my other question is, why are we signing this now when in 6.3 it says review of the above funding model arrangement is in process with the intent that revised funding model would be implemented in time for the long-term plan? Would that said figure be increasing, or would be, like, I can't find the figures anywhere.
Sorry, Councillor, what exactly is the question you're asking?
How much does the Gore District Council contribute so that we can be a part of this function?
Yeah, we may have to get back to you on that one. We're just looking through our numbers.
Councillor Bruce.
My question was the same. How much are the ratepayers paying to be part of this charter? A number?
Yeah, I'm going to look at Lorna and Debbie and see if they correct me, but I'm going to say $15,000 a year, and seeing some nodding from my colleagues to the left there.
Question for you, David. Can you clarify what that $15,000 is spent on? Like, does that cover travel and stuff for our, like, is that budgeted for us, or is that what we pay to the owner of the charter?
Do you have a better answer than me?
So the charter was set up 27 years ago, and under the RMA, and later on in the piece it included the Local Government Act, and we were very much a small organisation at that time, and that contribution supported Secretariat for us getting together as Te Rōpū Raiao, but it also included a little bit of pūtea from the different councils to allow us to function as an organisation at Te Ao Marama, to be able to provide services and partnerships with the various councils at that time. The 4 councils that were signed up and the 4 runanga that were signed up to the charter. So that contribution still allows us to invest a little bit in some of the work that we do on your behalf and that we do on behalf of councils and iwi, going from when we first signed up till now, and it's the figure hasn't changed very much over the years, and I doubt very much it will change going forward.
Yeah, I guess just to expand on that a little bit, you know, we are a very small council. We don't have a huge amount of resources, especially in the planning space. Planning is probably something that we collaborate on the most, I would say, and the resources that these guys have are hugely beneficial when we're doing a new district plan or when we're doing various other pieces of work where we're often required by legislation to work with local iwi. This is hugely beneficial in getting that work done. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Lorna, have you an answer to you?
The annual amount is $15,800. It would cost a lot more for us to get external consultants to do the work that Te Ao Marama does on our behalf. So it is a very modest amount. It is sitting in our long-term plan and annual plans as budgeted and approved.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, you have a question?
You kind of covered it off already, David. I was going to question, for that commitment financially, will we be getting support for our submissions, particularly noting the amount of legislation being pushed down, how central government is removing some of our opportunity to consult with our community and how important that consultation is. Will that provide support for our team to get really good, high-quality submissions that reflect our community?
Yeah, I think that's a really good example. The recent submission that is, I think, the next agenda item on the planning build, the RMA reform. It's a great forum for us to share with the other councils in this group of what their submissions are looking like, what are they considering, and the local iwi often submit on these government proposals as well. So yeah, it's a great forum to share submissions and help draft those joint submissions together, which we do from time to time as well.
So I go to Councillor Bruce, then Councillor Coates, and then
So with that consulting that they help us with, do the ratepayers pay for that consulting over and above the 15,000 that Lorna was just talking about? Do we pay you for the consulting on the district plans and whatever?
Not in that case.
Not for that specific one. I mean, if we were to commission them for a specific piece of work, there may be a charge. I can't think of any recent examples.
No. I suppose opportunity around joint submissions. I think our runanga, the four of us, did a submission to some of the latest legislation, and some of where they were aligned to what the council might be saying. We shared those alignments. So it's an opportunity, as David said, it's an opportunity to share and how we can get Southland style submissions back through to the government, those opportunities. So yeah, but as I say, you've got an existing charter of understanding with Hokanui, who do a lot of potential work with you. So, but where we can help at that political level, we'll be there for Hokanui and we'll be there for our councils.
thank you. I'll take one more question from Councillor Coates and then we'll make a decision.
Thank you. Sorry, just a clarification. I'm a new councillor, so I'm asking all the weird questions. In 4.47, it says council agree to have cultural awareness and capability programs for councillors and staff. Just wondering, David, is this something that we have available for councillors so that we can get a better understanding of the Ngāi Tahu and the runangas and all that kind of stuff? Because potentially some of our councillors, this could be all quite new.
Planned. Yeah. We've got some stuff planned.
Sorry. I think just in terms of that clause, it's more in line with the relationship you have with the mana to mana, with your Hokanui whānau. And with other councils, we might be the ones that help try and deliver that at Te Ao Marama. But you're very fortunate we've got Hokanui here that has a good relationship with the council that are able to deliver some of this. Would that be correct?
I'll allow one more question.
Just quickly, David, would we receive maybe a quarterly report or something just with updates of what's been happening with this group, with the charter?
The minutes of those meetings come back to council.
Right, Councillor, we've had a good question line. The recommendation, do I have a mover and a seconder for that recommendation? As in, receives and notes the Charter of Understanding, request the Mayor and the Chief Executive to sign the Charter. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Smith. Do I have a seconder? Moved by Councillor Stringer. All those in favour? Those. Oh, sorry. Bit ahead of my time. So, do we have any debate? Councillor Fraser.
No, it's going. I'm not denying that this is a good idea, but to me there's just not been a lot of transparency about this. It's just come to us and I haven't had enough time to actually go over the reasoning behind it. You mentioned 27 years ago, when this has been going for 27 years, that was probably when we were ignoring financial infrastructure in our towns. And we've had a lot of global issues happen from that time, and we now have a community that wants us to be very respectful of every penny we spend. I understand if we don't go through the charter today, we carry on with the previous one that is in place. I just want a little bit more oversight, a bit of governance and transparency, so I can see, you know, what elected member oversight we have in this. So I won't be supporting this today.
Any further debate? Councillor Cupid?
So, Andy, you're an existing councillor. Have you not been receiving the reports?
If I have, I've not seen them.
Mia Bell?
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Those having out to council meetings, I'm sure happy to dig them out as well, and we'll make sure that they are on the meeting, and can provide a synopsis of what's happened as well. I believe the last one Councillor String and Councillor Phillips went to, and that came up for questions too.
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, I support this. I believe that the principles of this agreement underpin all of our legislation as elected members, and that the benefits in the long term of being able to rely on our runanga and your support for our submissions will be a lot cheaper than any form of staffing that we're going to have in the long term. So I do support that. I do want to point out that there is the review of fees in the future, 2027 saying planned. I would hope that the sentiment of our council discussing how our impact on our ratepayers has been said today, that would be taken into consideration when those fees are being discussed. But yeah, I will be supporting this.
Mia Bell?
Sorry, I'm jumping in ahead of you, Councillor Coates. Just on those fees as well, I'd just like to highlight to the community, and also, as Councillor Coates said earlier, it's only 6%. So we only contribute a very small amount compared to everybody else. And I know every dollar matters, but when we're thinking about the overall package, we get a pretty sweet deal compared to the contribution that our fellow councils make.
Councillor Coates?
Thank you, and thank you for coming along today to answer my questions. I have to admit, at the start, I was a bit confused about what this was, because I have quite a good relationship with the runanga. Didn't understand the next tier of the level around this and the relationships that are there. So, yeah, thank you for your time, and I will be supporting this.
Okay, so if there's no further debate,
You need to call a division.
are you calling a division? Okay. You have to help me out here, I think.
Just raise your hands if... Repeat after me, Councillor Phillips.
That's right. Thank you. Raise your hands, those in favour. Against? Carried. Thank you. So once again, I'd just like to thank Dean, Ricky and Joe for coming along today. And yes, we'll be having a discussion later on about this, and we're looking forward to our meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips, and thank you. Just have a very quick intermission while David lets them on their way. We're just going to jump forward to 7.3, if that's okay with everybody, just while David's showing our guests out. So 7.3, I would like to table. There's quite a few changes that are needed within this document, largely just dates and things that need to be changed. So if it's okay with councillors, what I thought we might do is table that report. It'll be sent back and then we'll just email around the changes rather than spending half an hour trying to vocalise those changes, and it will come to the March meeting. Is that okay with everybody? Lovely. Okay. So we are tabling 7.3. And I believe we need David here for 7.4 as well. No, tables can just be tabled. Yeah, they don't need, as long as there's agreement around the table, they don't need to be moved or seconded. There's no recommendations. Okay. We'll have Morgan come up and present the submission on the Planning Bill and Natural Environment Bill, so 7.2. We did have a workshop recently on the district plan where we covered a little bit of this. It was a public workshop, but this is the submission as well. Welcome back to David too. Morgan or Dave, did you have any updates? Nope.
I just can take the report as read. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Bruce.
I'm just not sure. Are there any, do the council see any positives for rates capping?
Sorry, wrong item. 7.2? That'll be 7.4. No, that's my bad. We jumped to 7.3. So 7.2, submission on Natural Environment and Planning Bill. Councillor Gardine.
For the compensation for farmers or for landowners for having SNAs and that, it's basically, what is the width of that? Is it paying for the whole area to be bought and by the council, or is it just the council remissioning rates on that area? Or how far does this thing go? Is it just pretty wide open?
You'll see in our submission, our initial position was to oppose the regulatory relief and leaving it up to local government, so the council, to make decisions if those frameworks are required. So as council's previously discussed, having sort of non-regulatory methods like rates relief, letting that decision making be made at a local level, so the impact can be assessed at a local level on how that may be managed.
Yeah, I had concerns with opposing that, because basically if you're taking land, freehold land, someone's got to pay. But I know the local government shouldn't pay, but central government, if they want to bring the legislation down, they need to pay. So is that sort of stressed in the submission that says?
Yeah, a lot of the submissions sort of flagged that to achieve national outcomes, that cost should be covered at a national level rather than targeted to our local communities having to hold that cost. So that's sort of the type of feedback we provided through the submission.
Good question. Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions on the submission? Appear to be none. As a mover that receive a note and endorse the previously circulated submission, Councillor Fraser, seconded by Councillor Cupid. Any discussion? Councillor Stringer.
Thank you, Your Worship. How much effect to the end bills do you think all this is going to have, or is it already all set in stone and it's been pre-decided?
No, it's a debate. No, it's a debate question. You don't have to answer that one. That is purely political. I mean, how long is a piece of string, right? Some might have influence. I mean, you could only hope, right? We hope that everything that we submit on, that the government takes on ideas and thoughts and makes changes to their legislation. They're trying to make everybody happy. They're trying to make their voters happy. So, yeah. Have we seen much change? We've had some wins. We've had a lot of losses. It is what it is. Yeah. Councillor Smith?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for all the work that you've put into this and the whole team. There's a lot in here, and it's really a broad overview of all the pushback that we have sort of discussed as council and as the sentiment from our community and the wider community. So it's a lot to do in such a well-articulated document, so I appreciate the time that's being put into that.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. And yeah, I remember I'd just like to second that as well. I know you were saying only at the workshop that you've just lifted your head out of the district plan to be able to work on the submission, so it's pretty impressive to have such a thorough submission, considering there's obviously a lot of work with the district plan as well. Councillor Coates.
Much just backing up what Councillor Smith and said and Mayor Bell said, I do really like how you've written about providing clearer direction for the rural and identifying how the areas should be classified. I think that's really important because we're Gore City rural living. Like, it's really important to have that. So our rural folk have pointed out.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Your Worship. And yes, while you're negotiating between the two RMAs currently at the moment, we've seen that at the field days and how you handled that very well. And we'd just like to express that to the public or to our ratepayer that please be a bit mindful about the minefield that we're trying to go through at the moment, and just to look after the staff because they're working very hard at trying to get things right.
Thank you, Councillor. There's no further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. And against, that is carried. Thank you very much, Morgan, and thank you as well, Dave. Lorne, welcome back. We are now on to 7.4, Councillor Bruce, submissions on the rates target model for New Zealand. Lorne, did you have any additional information for us?
Through you, Your Worship, no. We circulated the submission prior to us to sending it to the government. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lorne. Councillors, Councillor Bruce.
Like I said before, is there any support in the submission? Is there any support from the council at all regarding rates capping? Is there anything they see good about it?
Through you, Your Worship, look, we've talked a lot with our Australian counterparts.
Sorry, okay, just from an officer's perspective, and then we can have a conversation about councillors as well, because I think that was two-sided. So, sorry, Lorne.
Yeah, from an officer's perspective, we have consulted with a lot of our colleagues overseas in Australia who are currently going through this and have had rates capping in years. What they're finding is the level of service that they can deliver to their community has dropped. The increase in potholes and roads and what they can do with their roads and infrastructure has diminished. So there's a lot of dissatisfaction of the community about what can be delivered. Trying to get anything above the rates cap they have found has been an expensive and onerous process, and in 99% of the time it fails. What we found, and if we go back to what Councillor Fraser had said earlier about infrastructure 27 years ago and not having provided for the future, we're already playing catch up, and a rates cap would limit our ability to maintain the assets we've got, let alone improve service. So we wouldn't even be able to maintain the current services that we offer and the current level of service if rates capping came into play. Also reflect back on the annual plan workshop where we talked about what has happened over the last 4 to 5 years, and in the submission you can see that the consumer price index has moved by 20%, yet our core expenses in our infrastructure area have moved by over 45%. So as it's currently proposed from a staffing perspective for what we see for the community and what we can deliver, there isn't positives. If it was to be refined to only a small percentage or small type number of or categories of expenditure, it might work. But for the larger stuff, we just have no control over that.
Yep, Councillor Bruce.
So the Australian ones, have they noticed that they've been able to find cuts in that since they've been forced to try to find them harder, if you know what I mean? Like, did they manage to make cuts and find stuff and save money on budgets?
So I'll answer that one. So if you look at our sister city in Tamworth, so they have had a rates cap for, I think, 25 odd years. They had to ask for an exception so that they could do a 36% rate increase. So yes, they found costs and deferrals and maintenance, but ultimately that all catches up to you, and then you have to do. There was another council in New South Wales as well. They did a 41% rate increase because the infrastructure couldn't keep up with their population levels and cost increases. So yes, you find those costs, but they're largely artificial. And then, like Lorna was just saying, you play this big game of catch up. So that's, yeah. But we can say that for debate as well. I'm happy to chat more about that too. Yeah, cool. Any other questions? I'm quite keen to get into debate on this one because I think it is a good one to air out publicly. If there are no further questions, we'll look for a mover that we receive a note and endorse the previously circulated submission. Councillor Stringer to move. When I put the motion, that is fine. Seconder, Councillor Smith, thank you. And we are open for discussion. Councillor Stringer.
Thank you, Worship. So I guess last week everyone would have been sent the email about the webinar for the rates capping. Did anyone else watch that? I think it is still available for circulation, but a lot of the outtakes for that were basically based on the UK and Australia, and some of those rural councils in Australia to meet the spectrum that they've got to keep the rates in have absolutely gutted their roading funding. One council has dropped their roading funding by about 95%, so you can imagine what 95% drop in our roading funding would do just to keep our other services up and running. Like Ben said, they get to the end of so many years and go, oh my God, we can't run much longer, we need to do a big increase, and then you have to apply for it. And I think they're looking at the same sort of system here. You're going to be keeping it between 2-something% and 3 or 4% that you'll have to operate in, and then if you're going to be outside that, you have to apply to the DIA for ability to operate outside, and they might go no. So then you'll have to go and say, right, what are we going to are we going to stop funding the pool? Are we going to stop funding a library, something like that? So it's quite. It's still all over the place. They don't have questions to everything on it either.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bruce?
I thought things like infrastructure and stuff like that isn't going to be included in the capping.
No, that's one of the issues that I personally have with the legislation, is that it's only waters. So roading is still capped, solid waste is still capped, things like chemicals is still capped. So all of those, insurance is still capped. So any of those that are outside of our control, we're going to have to find cuts elsewhere, and that's cuts into our libraries, into our pools, into our museums, etc. So be able to account for things like insurance, or to be able to just maintain, as Councillor Stringer said, maintain our roads to their current standard, let alone trying to improve them back to what they were. Councillor Fraser?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. And I think also you've got to look at, the Australian model. Their rates take isn't half of what they spend. Generally, they get a lot more assistance from central government, and I can't see anything written in here that says we're going to get increased help from central government. This is just a political football that gets airtime for certain political parties, and it may come about, I don't know, but it's going to be to the detriment of, I would think, everywhere in New Zealand.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cupit?
Thank you. I don't know what the right answer is, but I do know that our ratepayers want the council to live within their means, focus on the basics, and maybe rates capping is the way for us to achieve that financial discipline that we need.
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, I definitely understand the sentiment from Councillor Cupit there. I do have some other concerns. I believe that this rate capping could be a useful tool in the future, but not as it is currently proposed. And I think we've done a good submission to really highlight some of the biggest issues that would be faced against our council. I also have quite an issue around the fact that we have a long-term financial strategy to get those rate increases down to a manageable level as per our long-term plan. And to suddenly pull something like this in would change all of those figures and could, in the long run, detriment our community more so than if we were able to foresee and outplay that long-term strategy. So I think there's two parts to this, that we're not always focusing on just the rates capping, but how would that impact our long-term forecasting and planning to also be considered here.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor McKenzie.
Through you, Your Worship, I totally get the fact that rates capping sounds like a great idea, but as Tyrone just said, in its current form, it just will not work. It can't work. We're being set to fail, in my opinion. If you brought it in, like you mentioned, roads and potholes and things like that, it just, I'll reiterate, in its current form, in my opinion, it just won't work. It's impossible. I get the sentiment of rates capping. It sounds great, but the way it is, it's just not going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McDonald.
This is a blunt tool trying to fix a problem that's much, much deeper than this. With income tax, you earn more, you pay more tax. You've got the income, sorry, to pay the tax. Here, we've got increasing costs that councils are facing. Government puts in legislation that causes us more hassles, and we have to employ more people to meet the regulations, and the same in the water entity, more testing, more all of this, so that the rates have to go up to pay for that. Yet we've got an increasing retiring population, and 40% of them, according to national statistics, will retire only on the pension and with the rates bill. So there's two clashing forces coming together, and this is just going to end up in a big mess like in Australia. So I don't like it. I don't like putting the rates up, but there's got to be medium ground, a meeting in the thing. I mean, the whole rates thing's got to be looked at from a different angle, because the funding of the councils via rates is just not going to end up being viable in the future, where people on pensions of 30,000 are going to get a rate 8 between water, regional council and the Gore District Council are going to end up with rates bills in the order of $150 to $200 a week. And it's just not going to be affordable on a pension of $800 to $1,000 a fortnight.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stringer.
Thank you, Worship. One thing that was also noteworthy in that webinar was that their rate capping model was based on growth. So I did bring up the question. I said, look, what happens to a council where we have an ageing population? We've actually got more deaths and we've got births or migrants coming into the district, to which they were just blank. We have no formula for a depopulating region. That would be something to experience.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Smith.
On the back of what Joe said, it's also not allowing us to then fund economic development strategies or potential attraction to local businesses to coming in, because that is seen as not needed expense. So a hamstrung to then grow our population at the same time as facing the fact it's decreasing.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gardine.
This is probably a move to restructure the whole of local government, and probably when you look at some of the things that was happened is the Three Waters is going out, why isn't roading going out? We're subsidised 61%, user pays, and vehicle taxes can be easily modified to make that extra bit up and take it right out of rates. There's a lot of other examples in council that could change, and it's going to be a major revamp because this is not sustainable. If we bring in capping, it's not sustainable, and if we keep rising rates at the rate we are, people don't have the choice, they have to pay. A lot of people paid some penalties this last year, and that penalty lot's getting higher. One person I was talking to had the choice between paying for the food and the diesel to heat his home and family and the rates, and he had to leave the rates out and pay the penalty when he could afford to.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McDonnell.
Yeah. one further thought. The government gives, looking at pensioners, because they're an increasing area in this area of rates are going up out of control. When people rent, they actually get an extra thing on their pensions for rent. They may have to look at people who own their own homes, giving them a payment for rates, like you apply for a rent thing. In the bigger cities, pensioners get a rental allowance on top of their normal pension to pay for accommodation in Auckland. So they may have to, if they're going to do things, target it that way so that people on fixed incomes get rates relief as well as.
Thank you, Councillor. Last two, and then we'll wrap it up because I think we're starting to go around in circles a little bit. Councillor Cubitt.
Thank you. Just we're talking about, potentially having the future changing the funding model and the whole way local government works. Has there been any talks at ministerial levels about that, given it's election year?
Look, there's things in the coalition agreement that haven't been delivered on yet, like GST back on new builds. I haven't seen anything back, Crown royalties on minerals, mining, back to councils. There's not a lot of progress on those. I don't think there's a huge amount of drive to get those over the line. I'm sure there'll be all sorts of campaigns that come out, promises that are made. Not many of them come to fruition. The other bit that I'll mention is there is the Future for Local Government report that was commissioned by the previous government that has some alternative funding streams. None of them have really been taken up on, unsurprisingly.
I just wanted to add to that LGNZ has done significant amount of advocacy with government on the rating model for this country, and they've also produced a significant amount of evidence to demonstrate that the rating model doesn't work, and there have been endless calls from the president of LGNZ to central government for them to take note that the rating model is broken. So I think there is, within local government, there is a widespread understanding that the rating model just doesn't work and it isn't sustainable, but it's just trying to get that voice heard within central government. That's the issue.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bruce, finish us off.
Just with what Stuart was saying, there is a accommodation supplement for people that are struggling, but it's not even close to near enough. There's a cap here for our region, and it's $80 a week. I would just want to say that I was going to vote against endorsing this submission, but then after talking and listening here, I do realise now that there needs to be work on it. I do support rates capping. I think it's a good incentive for councils to bring down costs on things and maybe cut services or whatever, but after listening, we've taken in on board that obviously there needs to be some work done at the other end to improve how that looks.
Thank you, Councillor. So you wouldn't like to call for a division? No. Perfect. Anybody else? Lovely. Nice and clean. I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And against? That is carried. Thank you very much, councillors. Thank you, Lorne. Moving on to the Great South Statement of Intent, and then we will have a quick break before we go in committee. So 7.5, the Great South Statement of Intent. Debbie, would you like to talk to this at all?
Just to let you know that it's quite a convoluted process in terms of how it works with Great South. It can be a little bit confusing. For those who are new councillors, you've come in at the tail end of the process. So at this end of the process, it's more around an FYI. So there has already been the feedback given to Great South around what we want them to focus on. So this is their response to that. So you will get another chance to provide feedback, and Great South do come here regularly to present in terms of how they're going, in terms of their KPIs, and also regularly take feedback from this council in terms of what we want to see as priorities. Also, just to note that there was an opportunity at that meeting last week. Yes, last week, and the councillors who were there also provided feedback in terms of regional priorities. But otherwise, I'll take the report as read and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Debbie. Questions? Councillor Coates.
Probably a question for Debbie. Can you just explain, being a new councillor, the shares and investments around the space ops and stuff like that? Like, I know that we have shares, but how does it work, and are we expecting to see any dividends from said shares in the future, or do you know?
Yeah, so basically what we have is we have shares in Great South. So they're at what we call a joint CCO, so a joint council controlled organisation. The shares are based on population, which is why we contribute significantly less financially than Southland District Council and Invercargill. So our shares represent the proportion of population that we have that sits within Gore District. My understanding is that Space Ops is part, and Ben probably know more about Space Ops than I do, but they are part of Great South. So at the moment they do make a profit, but at the moment that profit is invested back into the business. So that, as expressed at that meeting on the 10th, at the moment they can't keep up with demand, so they're investing back in the business so that the business can grow. The idea is at some point in the future, once it has grown to a level where it's sort of, more commercially viable, then the councils will receive a dividend, or there's a possibility for councils to receive a dividend from Space Ops. Does that answer your question?
So just a slight technicality, Debbie was basically right there, but so Great South is the only shareholder of Space Ops, and then we're shareholders of Great South. So that makes sense? We're the only shareholders collectively. So that does, it does get challenged by councils fairly regularly about the dividends and whether that's the right decision to be made. I don't have, a call on that. And my personal view is that I think it should continue to grow that business for as long as possible, so we see the greatest amount of dividend return over time. Whether our community needs that now or not, I guess, is a decision further down the line of whether we want to push for that. But just remembering we are a smaller shareholder, so trying to get that across the line with others will be a challenge. Councillor Coates.
Do we have a seat at the Space Ops table in any way, shape or form?
No, so that's where I was clarifying that situation up. So we are a shareholder of Great South. Great South is a shareholder of Space Ops. So members of the Great South board sit on the Space Ops board, but no, the shareholders don't sit on Space Ops. That makes sense? It is a little bit confusing. Yeah, go for it.
So how does the feedback go back to Great South, to the Space Ops, that potentially the view is whether or not to feed it back into Space Ops or whether to share it out in dividends? Like, how does that happen? Sorry.
No, that's okay. So that opinion is, so the recommendation is put up by the Great South board. So they would make that call based on the shareholders of Space Ops, and then we would then agree or disagree to that as well. Does that make sense? So it's quite a convoluted process, but that's because it's a company that owns another company. So their direct financial decision making it's one step removed from us as shareholders. I know that sounds really complicated, but it kind of is. Go for it.
So Great South, who around our table feeds back into Great South?
Me. I sit on the Great South Shareholders Committee. Yes. Yeah. There's only one member, and I believe it has to be the mayor. Otherwise, I would. I would bring more people with me. Councillor Fraser?
Yeah, just on that, you were talking there before that Great South is the shareholder of Space Ops. So I get that, but there's a massive conflict in there with board members being on both boards. Is that you can direct one board, Great South to direct Space Ops to have a dividend payment, and then those guys go jump on their space, and then is that how that works?
Yeah, you'd have to argue that there is possibly a conflict there. It's not unusual in the business space. So if you do a joint venture, that conflict also arises where do you represent the board that you're on or the board that you came from that appointed you there? That conflict always arises. So I know that the people who are appointed to that Great South board do take that conflict very seriously. Councillor Stringer?
Thank you, Worship. So Great South being the ultimate holding company, how many other companies other than Space Ops are actually underneath them that they have a share interest in? Because I've looked through here, I can't see any mention of any other businesses that they might be developing.
My understanding is that the only other one was Functional Foods when they were exploring the oat milk plant. So they owned 51% of that, in line with, was it 49? Yeah, 49. Oh, Councillor Smith?
No, page 2 of their Great South Statement of Intent says the company is owned by Southland Regional Development Agency is Space Ops, 100%. That's the only one listed. So anything would be listed there otherwise.
Yeah, although I'm now thinking out loud, they did have that investment, so whether they sold out of that, not that I imagine it would be worth a whole lot at that time. I'll follow up on the Functional Foods, because I know we did have a keen interest on that, as to where that is in terms of shareholding, and whether that should be reported. Yeah. Any further questions? Councillor McKenzie?
Just one, Ben. Some time ago, there was talk of people pulling out of Great South, councils, shareholders, etc. Did any of that ever actually happen? Or they all, since Space Ops has come along, they all think, we might hang about a bit longer? Your thoughts, please.
No councils have pulled out of Great South. I believe there is a paper going up to Invercargill today, or may have already gone up, that is to, and I hope it's public, I think it is, about their funding streams for Great South and what they may do with that. But both Southland and Invercargill have a slightly different arrangement with Great South, so they have the core funding, which we all have, and they also have contract funding. So it's a little bit different as to they can go, well, we don't necessarily want you to do that contract anymore. But the overall core stays there. Yeah. Councillor Coates?
Being our representative on Great South, what do you personally feel the biggest advantage of us being a part of Great South is for our ratepayers in our district? Like, is there anything of major significance that they've done since we've been involved in it that is a product?
Way to put me on the spot. I guess to clarify, I'm only on the shareholders group to help with these types of documents. So they come to the shareholders group and make sure that they're in line with council expectations and make sure that everything is ticking along correctly. So there's not really additional information that I get from attending that. It's more of an administrative shareholding group. In terms of benefits, I guess it's all relative to what you value over other bits. Economic development, they are the Regional Economic Development Agency, so economic development is their cup of tea. So whether that's tourism or the amazing work that one of their GMs does in the housing space, or aquaculture, or energies, there's lots and lots. I mean, with respect, Councillor Coates, you were at the presentation where they explained everything and all the benefits that they had. So what you want to pick out of all of the large amounts of work that they do is the most benefit is really up to each individual councillor. So my personal opinion for this district is around the wind energy resourcing, so a lot of the windmills, including the Kaiwera Downs, that modelling was all done and released publicly with the help of Great South. So decarbonisation is another one that's, the electrification of the MVM plant as well is a benefit to our district.
You may.
Like Ben said, it's not a quick answer because they do a lot of things, but ultimately the outcomes that you would expect to get from an economic development agency is increased tourism spend in the region and also increased employment opportunities for people. So if you look at something like aquaculture, the idea is that will bring a significant number of jobs to Southland and potentially business opportunities for Gore agriculturalists. So all of those things have been properly financially modelled with the financial benefits projected in specific financial scenarios. So all of those things are available for you to understand and talk through. But like I said, there's lots of different pieces of work underway, and so you'll need to probably spend a bit of time understanding the breadth and depth of that over time before you can fully understand it. When Chami does come and present, it's a good opportunity for councillors to really kind of do a bit of a deep dive into all of the different pieces of work that they are doing and understand that better.
Councillor Coates.
You've spoken, Debbie, recently about wanting to develop an economic strategy. So will you be using them, Great South specifically, to feed into that strategy? And another question too, while I've got my mic on. Great South are currently undertaking a spatial planning work for Southland regionally. With Gore's name being on there, is that going to feed into something for us, or are they just chucking us in there to get? Can you explain that?
So could you just repeat your first one? So because I've already forgotten what that was. I was just thinking about the next one.
Is it going to feed back?
Yes, thank you. Yep. So we are able to lower the cost of our doing our economic strategy because we can use the projected economic data that Great South have done in terms of their industry forecasts within our own strategy. So that's of significant benefit to us. They have also participated in all of the working groups that we've had to date, and are able to provide us with resource which will help us to deliver a strategy at a lower cost than what it would have cost us otherwise. So yes, we are working quite closely with Great South on our own individual economic development issues here. Second question again? Oh yeah, spatial planning. So there is a housing survey that's out at the moment. It has our name on it because we are participating with Southland on that housing survey. So at the moment we are trying to understand better what the housing needs are within the whole region really. And we are participating in that. So yes, the data will help us. It helps us to understand what growth is going to be required for within Gore District for the future, which helps us plan better in terms of infrastructure planning.
So around that survey that they're currently doing, am I correct in saying that we would have already done spatial planning prior to our district plan that's just come out? So haven't we done all that information previously? So why is it being redone, and why would we need it?
So what we have done is we've done some basic forecasting in terms of housing demand and also industrial growth. We've only done 20 years, whereas the gold standard is 30. It's a different type of spatial planning to the type of spatial planning that Great South are now doing now. So when the government brings in their new legislation, we will be required to produce a regional spatial plan, which will have a lot more layers in it than what the work we've done. So we've done the kind of basic work that we needed to inform our district plan. The regional spatial strategy will consider more layers, like things like shared transportation routes, economic development and how that impacts across the whole region, and that will put us in a better place to be able to deliver that regional spatial strategy, the work that Great South is currently doing.
So the work that we've done around spatial planning that's fed into our district plan isn't in fact going to feed into the regional spatial planning that is going to be potentially due 1st of July. We're going to have we got budgeted forecasts for staff time and all that?
So the work that has been done will help because it forms part of the base information that feeds into any spatial strategy. There is an argument for repeating this work semi-regularly because growth projections change over time. So forecasts need to be updated every couple of years, probably every 3 years really, to make sure that they're still remaining accurate. In terms of, we are still waiting in terms of the RMA final RMA in terms of the impact on this organisation and how much that's going to cost us. We're quite lucky that we have Great South, because I think they will probably end up leading a lot of that regional spatial strategy work, which will hopefully save us money within our organisation. Because if we had to staff that ourselves, it would be a significant cost, which we haven't budgeted for at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Your Worship. Look, I've been a fine advocate for Great South ever since it came to council, and I've been to several meetings, been to their annual general meetings, and so on. So, look, I think it would be probably prudent that we actually have a bit of a around the table discussion about what they actually do involve in bringing to our council, because you know, like if all the new councillors got the document of beyond 2025 for a start off, they would understand what their visions are, and what our vision is to join them. And we've got to remember that we've probably only got one CCO currently at the moment, and I think we've got to look after it. Even though it hasn't given us a dividend yet, perhaps it's time that the mayors gave them an ultimatum and said, you've got 3 years to give us a division, or some money back, otherwise we'll pull out.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, we meet with Great South fairly regularly, so for those new councillors, they do come up here and we talk through letters of expectation and statement of intent, so you'll get plenty of opportunities to hear from them if you missed last week. If there's no further questions, I'll look for a mover that we receive a note. A question? Councillor Bruce? Discussion, or is it question? Is there a discussion? There'll be a discussion? Yep. So receives and notes, Great South Statement of Intent, receives and notes the Space Ops Statement of Intent, and endorse the joint feedback letter. Mover, Councillor Phillips, seconded by Councillor Coates. And now we are open for discussion. Councillor Bruce.
So I've just got written here on behalf of the ratepayers, really, there's a lack of clear linkage between spending and direct ratepayer relief. While many initiatives are strategic and long-term, the statement of intent does not clearly demonstrate how continued or increased funding will reduce pressure on rates, lower council costs, or improve affordability for residents. In a high cost of living environment, this makes it difficult to justify ongoing funding growth without stronger evidence of direct benefit. And also I want to note that we have now employed also an economic development officer, and I feel like that's a double up of resources.
Just to provide some clarity on the staff, so we haven't employed anyone extra. What we have done is we have tasked an existing staff member to also look at economic development on top of his standard role. So just on that, like every other staff member here, you're doing multiple things at the same time with a limited amount of time to do it. It doesn't mean that we have a whole role that's dedicated to economic development, because he has a substantive role looking after all of our community development activities. So economic development is in there, but it's definitely not a full-time role.
So again, just to clarify on top of that, so that's all of our community activities, like looking after the Mayor's Task Force team and the Ready for Living and welcoming communities and events and things like that. Yeah. And then somewhere in there trying to squeeze in economic development too. Councillor Stringer?
Through your worship. This would come under the 4 wellbeings that we have to meet as part of council, wouldn't it? Either having that internally in-house or provided externally, where we have to benefit the community.
Probably not, and those 4 wellbeings are, going to be heading towards being removed. But economic development is like a clear priority for this government. Economic growth. You'll hear the Prime Minister was talking about it just last week when he was here. So it's a priority. I don't think that we should be stepping off the gas pedal with economic development. I wouldn't be able to deliver on some of those campaign promises. Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I agree with Councillor Bruce and some of the stuff she says, and Councillor Phillips. I can see the promotional idea in here, but it's like a lot of things today. There's a lot of hooey and not a lot of doey. You actually want to see some results, classic results, and I'm still smarting from the oat plant issue, although probably it did save us. At the end of the day, when I read in, where's page 5, and then I read that that they are a carbon-conscious organisation. I don't actually care about that. It's regional growth. And putting so much behind that and net zero. Yes, it is an idea, but as I've clearly said many times before, if New Zealand becomes net zero at 2050 and the rest of the world hasn't, it's cost us billions and we've got nowhere. So my support of them is wavering.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to quit the discussion there purely because Great South isn't here to defend themselves, so we could make our political statements, and I think it's only fair if we have that discussion with them as well. So with that being said, is there any further discussion? I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. And against, the motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Just before we take a break, I just want to address that we will continue to talk about Great South in the future. They circle back fairly often. So, yeah, your comments are definitely not dismissed, Councillor Fraser. We're going to take a short intermission, bathroom breaks, coffees, etc. And we will come back in 5 minutes and we'll jump into public excluded. Thank you very much.